As a youngster, what I have in my thought is what I've read and what I've heard, and the book that painted a good picture of it is Where Others Wavered by Sam Nujoma. It doesn't even start on the 10th of 1959 December. No. It starts from March, somewhere in February, that there was a development that has happened that led to the 10th of December, and that the uprising itself was caused by an instruction to boycott because there were workers, domestic workers, and everybody just to boycott, to stop using public transport and everything. And when that happened, the administration retaliated, and didn't retaliate in a kind way or in a orderly manner of just saying don't do this. They were aggressive. They were shooting people already this side. And back to Kakurukade Mungunda, I read in the book now that she was an ordinary lady who lived in old location. Some people say he used to own a cooker shop. She was vibrant. Sam Nujoma writes she was a quite beautiful woman as she's writing. Not to spin things out of context, but that's what she writes. She was a common lady. You know, on that day, a young man was shot. And as a mother, I believe, the sentimental of it, a child being shot, she went to the administration, who were even armed, and confronted them. Yeah. And that's what led to her being shot. But the whole idea is just to celebrate ordinary people so that they can also be in statues, so that we only don't put historical figures that were on the front line, on the mainstream, hosting leadership roles, but as well ordinary Namibians such as Anna, who per se didn't really have a specific role, like to say, oh, she was a leader of women movement or what, but she was an ordinary woman who played a significant role in fighting oppression in sight of death. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I have read about Kakurukade Mungunda myself many years ago when I was still in school, of course. And then, of course, we still continue to see snippets of that history. But in your understanding, did she play a role beyond just the 10th of December? Like she was persistent in the search for justice around, for her people in that area? Or is it somebody who just popped up on that day, as you might have read? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but in other words, did she came to fame only on that day? She just happened to stumble upon the resistance, and she joined and became a hero in that moment? Or was she some sort of activist already even prior to that day, as you understand?
As I've read and as I've gathered my research to the people that remembered of her very well, they are saying that she wasn't just an ordinary as I want to put it, but she was a significant figure in the community, doing everyday chores, hosting an assembly. People used to gather around her, and Sam Nujoma himself saying she knew her as a community lady who was doing everyday activities of other women that they do. And also she wasn't really aggressive towards the administration and stuff, but the administration pushed her to an extent where she has to retaliate as a mother. But basically, she was just an ordinary lady doing everyday chores like any other lady in that area living in an old location.
Yeah.
But the escalation is that she had to put her life on the table for justice.
Absolutely. Do you think that makes it even more compelling? Because what we have seen in our country over the past 36 years is that heroes or heroic, or the people that we recognize as heroes are those that held some sort of status in society. And there's been calls by people saying, look, the people that we bury the Heroes Acre, the people that we name after streets, the people who we name after roads and whatnot, should not only be those that have played heroic deeds at that level, but really ordinary people who also accomplished a few things. Do you think that Mungunda fits that narrative to say she was a common woman who rose on the day, and she must therefore, she's a very different kind of hero and not your usual people that we sing about every day?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole narrative that we are putting in the article, to say common people, they should also be put at the front of public memory, whereby we just don't want to see statues of people that were at the front, but as well common people should be celebrated because they played a significant role to the structure. The structure wasn't just playing at the top to fight injustice, but it was in the mainstream at every step, at every level. People were fighting injustice, including now Anakakurukade Mungunda. And there's basically a way of remembering people where you can put a statue and say it's a statue of an unknown woman.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something that we can put out there. While there are significant figures like Anakakurukade Mungunda who put her life at stake of justice. And if you see the global cause, the stories of heroes, people that we celebrate like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, there's always a death aspect that is in it, and that's sentimental. There is no price to put on the table in negotiation than putting your life. That's why we celebrate these people. And for Christians, I don't want to go into preaching and stuff, but the story behind, you can also see Jesus also died for people's sins. So it's a story of people that have put life on the table. It's kind of humane, natural to celebrate and to put the public memories such as statues and all those stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, when you visit the site where the Francois statue stood in the past, what is there now? Lately, I haven't been there.
Yeah, so when we were doing our drive now with my friend, we checked there and there's a love structure. You know, this kind of thing like welcome to the town.
Yeah.
These things going on where it's a red heart for tourism.
Is it there
purposely.
by the circle there?
I don't know exactly at the statue. There's just a love
Yeah, but
mounted.
where's the statue? Is it because I saw the welcome to Windhoek thing with a white frame.
Yeah,
There by the circle.
by the circle. Yeah, so it kind of resembles this thing that they put on where the statue is. It's just a love thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to boost tourism and feel the warmth. But we can tell a better story than that.
Absolutely.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative Sport Tourism.
I think there's one thing you speak about, like, specific movies. Like, for instance, if you're looking at even in terms of the awards, the two big films that have been nominated for from the film side, Speel Aan, which is essentially an Afrikaans film, where they also like sneaking Kweke Kobab.
Yeah.
Like, and then you see the level of acting, but also the level of production work and storytelling.
Yeah.
I think it does that. Also, hashtag, Namibia Land of the Brave. It's similar to what we see throughout the world. I think the challenge that we have when we look at industry is not so much are the quality of the films good enough, how many films are we producing?
Yes.
Right? So it's the volume of films. So if you're looking at a country like Dominican Republic, they make about 76 to 80 films a year.
Okay.
But if you look at the back end of that, it's like 80 films means 80 times people are catered for.
Yes.
80 transport companies, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And in that way, it's the fueling of the economy. So I think it's in a very growing perspective. The quality of the films are there, but we're not producing a lot of them because the cost of producing a film is still very expensive because we don't have an industry. I mean, when we're looking at equipment that must be imported, if we're looking at as simple as some of the trailers that are needed, all of this stuff is brought in and it increases cost. So I think the bigger question is how many films of quality are we producing?
That's a very interesting question. Another interesting or important aspect of filmmaking is that it tells stories, but the question is it telling Namibian stories? Is it really reflecting who we are and who we want to be and where we come from? Or is it just a Hollywood formula that we are regurgitating? Yeah.
Very good. I think what you're talking to us about is like the danger of imitation and rather like the authenticity.
Yes,
authenticity. And I think Namibia in itself being a very diverse country, in its diversity, there's also like hegemony.
Yes.
Right. So like, who's telling whose story? Right. Who's making money from whose story? So that's like an internal conversation that we need to have in terms of like authenticity. All right. Like, are Namibians as a resource to tell their own story? So I'll give you a practical example. This semester at NUST, we had to cancel the script writing for film and children's television because people are so production focused. But what are you putting into production?
Yeah.
If we are not developing the stories in a very comprehensive manner.
Yes.
So I think our focus must not just look at the output of films like you're talking about, but the genesis. So for instance, in the animation class where I was teaching last year, we were exploring stories like Krok Krok from Katima. And then the writers talking about why the people eat the crocodiles, because you're overfishing.
Yes.
And then naturally becomes like a story about like nature conservation.
Yes.
Right. And I think, taking that into the production line would be interesting. Another one, a student was looking at Together with Tuli, where Tuli is a little girl moving back into the village because her parents are young professionals in the city. And she's a rara and booty kid. And how does she go back early on and, in this calabash meeting this bunny, and they talk about, how to navigate the rural kind of context.
Yes.
And so I think your point is really relevant. And so the investment starts in the originality of the story. And that's how we can then, ensure that the copyright.
Excellent. You also had the opportunity to host some of those discussions, and I'm sure that you listened in on others and you were attendant at the awards, at the festival in general. Can you tell me about the quality of the discussions that were staged there?
It's if you're looking at particularly let's look at like the master classes or the workshops, like things like from budgeting, like the financial side of it. What it does, it elevates the status of filmmaking. So I always make a joke when I speak to them. You mustn't say you're a filmmaker, man. You must say you're a film manufacturer. Because with manufacturing, there's a whole like trade regime that comes along with this. There's like rebates that are, you can go into like special economic zones and set up film studios in there. So the manufacturing kind of elevation is what we're looking at. And what we talk about in like the world, in the industry, is showbiz.
Yes.
And I think what this film week did is that it focused on showbiz.
Okay.
It looked at marketing and publicity and distribution and issues of how do you, optimize a budget and become cost effective. And I think that's the fuel that these films need.
Okay.
Right? Because these films are the vehicles, but there's not enough fuel in them.
Yes.
It's always in a reserve tank.
So
after you make the production, there's not enough fuel left to get you to Hollywood or to the Oscars or to the Namibian music. To the Namibian Film Awards. So I think strategically what the commission did and for us in the industry what it capacitated, beyond just us meeting together. Because a lot of the times the biggest challenge is fragmentation.
Yes.
You don't even come together. So what I saw, for instance, even in the informal side was, the commissioners from the NBC talking to the ones from One Africa, talking to the ones, who are independent film producers from the production houses. And so I think from there, you could kind of see people forming strategic relationships and bonds. And I think that networking opportunities are very important. And I don't think we should take those for granted.
Yeah, and I definitely think that those are necessary building blocks so that we can produce these captains of film industries that you were alluding to previously. Tell us a little bit about the highlights of the week for you, and maybe also the opportunities that the participants got to dress up and enjoy the glitz and glamour that's supposed to come with film.
Yes, I think for me, like you're saying, it's I got to watch a few of the films. Particularly, I was part of a process where, in the first round, every year the Film Commission uses public investment to commission films.
Yes.
And what was interesting for me was, in the commissioning of the films, I was part of the first round of films that were entered in, and then we kind of took it from the long list to the short list, and then they went through. And a lot of the films that we had, given our heads up to, actually ended up being the films. So it was, interesting to watch the short films, particularly that were commissioned by the NFC, and then again understand why public investment is so important in ensuring that each guy got like $150,000, but what came out of it,
yes,
and the level of creativity that is in this country, it's like changing the narrative in terms of talent can be lost, or talent can be developed.
Yes.
And I think when we are intentional about that, when we're developing talent, it becomes a resource.
Yes.
And that resource is what we need to develop as a nation, not just in terms of, when I speak about the creative industries at Gito, I always say, unlike other industries where they kill 3 birds with 1 stone, we save 3 birds with 1 nest. We save the bird of particularly identity and collective imagination.
Yes.
All right. Well, how do we imagine ourselves as a nation, as creators? How do we feed the soul of the nation? And then how do we also do this in terms of our society? There's a lot of violence in our places. There's a lot of trauma, intergenerational trauma. So how do these films address a lot of these issues that make us, have these conversations that are hard to have without the film?
Yes.
And then lastly, it's also about the people's livelihoods. And I think when you consolidate all of that, that's the dignity that we're speaking about that is encapsulated in this nest. And a lot of the times, I think as Africans, we have an inferiority complex in consuming our own content because it feels like we were made too much fun of for too long. And so how do we, kind of re-own our sense of purpose through film making? And how do we reestablish a sense of dignity by watching these films, by making these films, and then by telling this new narrative?
The Film Week, I think, also gets to demonstrate that Namibian film and film in Africa, it's developing, it's growing, it's getting better. But from a local point of view, a lot of the money-making opportunities, especially short-term, would be perhaps in telling our corporate stories, corporate videos and promotional videos. Although I see that most of our big corporates are always hiring crews from South Africa and further afield. Do you think we are getting to the stage where Namibian production houses can deliver the qualities to convince local businesses that they need to hire Namibians to tell those stories?
Okay. Well, I happen to also serve as a public policy guy, right? So generally, in other industries, how you navigate that is that you have like local content quotas, right? So for instance, advertising houses, anybody in the value chain can be through either legislation, regulation, or in terms of policy, be encouraged or mandated to have a local content quota. So it's saying, okay, from every, particularly state-owned enterprises can play a key role in that, to say every state-owned enterprises must use 80% local content when it comes to their marketing, their branding, their PR, and therefore a lot of the times the challenges in the private sector, the brands that we think are Namibian might not be owned by Namibians.
Yes, yes.
And they are part of like a global value chain, all right? And therefore these contracts are centralized and procured not maybe from the Windhoek office, but from the Johannesburg office.
Yes.
And so the question really is, how do we develop relationships with the private sector? What platforms are there? And I know the Namibian government is working on, for instance, the Creative Industry Council,
Yeah.
with public, private, and civil society coming together to say, okay, how do we then, enforce issues around local content when it comes to content development?
Thank you very much.
Well, an association is a project or a movement that is surely, like in our case, concentrating only on a specific area, like for instance, as in Windhoek, and then we had to register an association with the same name in Swakopmund. So you only concentrate in that particular area.
Yeah.
But when you establish a political party, then you can participate anywhere across the country. You don't need to be confined to a geographical area, like for instance, as an association in Windhoek, for instance. So you can then run and participate in local authority, regional council elections, national elections throughout the country.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. What kind of work will you put in place now, between now and 2029? Because your statement seemed to suggest that registering as a political party will be quite a smooth process. I mean, maybe even on that point, just you need some signatures.
Yes, you do. You do.
Do you think you have the attraction to gain those?
Well, strange enough, when we started Asoli last year, we kept a database of people across the country that were calling us to want to join Asoli. But we told them that at that time last year that no, you cannot join now because you are in Hobabes or you are in Ushakati or wherever you are, because we are currently concentrating only on Windhoek. But we kept that database and those connections. This year, we reached out to these people to ascertain whether they are still interested to continue now formally joining Asoli, and most of them, 99% of them say, no, yes, we are. And they are scattered around the country, really. And that is the process where we started to say, okay, it seems to be very, very promising. Let's continue now and start the process of forming a political party, which entails that for you to register as a political party, you have to have 500 names in 7 regions across the country, which for us, it's really nothing.
Yeah.
Because the groundwork has already been done. We have contact people that are doing this job as we speak in those regions. So for us, registering as a political party then becomes a formality, really.
So walk in the park.
It's just a walk in the park.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me, Josie, where do you, what bug beat you to the extent that you are, that political bug that beat you so much that you, I mean, I know that you you have other life ambitions, but for some reason, you have put politics at the very center of your existence. Where does that come from?
Well, it really comes from being me. You remember, I started politics when I was what, 15, 16 years old? From student movements, 88, 89, when I was like a small boy. And then I transitioned to student movement. I became president of NACOS at the time, a student movement equal to NASEM and NANSO, where I met the likes of Honorable Shifeta Pohamba, all these Peya Mushelengas, what, I cannot even mention them. So I think it's an inborn thing, really. And that is where some people are missing it. Some people think that Joseph Kawandenge wants to form political party or associations for his stomach. But as you rightly said, Kawandenge is a well-educated person that can go anywhere. In fact, I'm working now as I'm talking somewhere, right? After Parliament. I'm not starving financially to say that politics is the only vehicle through where I can get, a livelihood. But I am one of those people that strongly believe that I still can contribute meaningfully to our country, the political discourse. I'm one of those people that cannot sit idle and see things going highway. So long as I'm sorted, I'm working, I have my job, 8 to 5, I come home with my kids and wife, and that's it. That's just not in me. I need to have something else, a calling beyond my own personal comfort. And this is what some Namibians don't understand. For people like us, that as if we are desperate, that we want to remain relevant in politics. I mean, I'm in my early 50s today, but we have politicians here that are in their 70s, in their 80s, and across the world that still want to cling to position of powers, whether for whatever reasons, I don't know. Like, for instance, Malawi, the current president, he came back for another term. He's what, 85? And you can mention and you can mention. At my age, why can I not spare another 10 years, God willing, to contribute to the political discourse, economical discourse in our country? And by the way, for me, Asoli was a test as well, to see whether there are people that resonate with my vision. Because believe me, if I could not get even one vote last year in Asoli, I could have called it Opuo. I say,
Baman.
Baman Opuo. But the mere fact that there are a certain section within our society that still continue, despite the insults on Kawandenge personality and running from party to party and what, there is still a section within our society that still listen and say, no, we are still going to vote for him.
Yeah.
That gives me the promise and hope to say, then I cannot stop here. I should continue and expand this movement to the wider Namibian society.
Mm.
Yeah.